And good afternoon. Welcome into another episode of Market Talk here on this Thursday, April 21st. Great to have you with us. Thanks for making us part of your day. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. Find us on our website, markettalkag.com. You can find all of our streaming sources there, our social media links, the latest news of agriculture, past episodes, and much more. It's all at markettalkag.com. Quarter wheat ended up with some pressure to the downside here today, with wheat leading us to the downside, while the soy complex is fairly firm. Cattle were firm to strong today as well. Plenty to discuss. Let's bring in our good friend Bryan Doherty with Total Farm Marketing joining us here this afternoon. Bryan, good afternoon to you, sir. And it started out, it was mainly an inside trading day. We're just kind of trading quiet, and then we kind of faded in quarter wheat there towards the end of the session today.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, when you have high prices and you don't have something to feed the bull, this is what happens. The market can tip over. And kind of an interesting week because on Tuesday we put new highs in on corn, and then the market ended up posting what we call a hook reversal, which means post a new high but closed lower than the previous day. So not necessarily the warm and fuzzy signal that you want if you're bullish. Nice to see the new highs, but didn't hold it. Yesterday, we saw follow through in the morning, and buyers came running right back in. They bought the dips. And then the key is always that follow through. Are we going to get that next leg higher, that next push higher? Just didn't happen. And I think the traders took that as a cue to, either lighten the load or to hedge some grain or do something because it is high priced. And for many of us, it kind of hit a zone where we thought, well, it looks like there's a reason for corn. It could go to $8. And it did. Looks like new corn could go to 750, and it did. Now what? So
Yeah.
market starts to look at the forecast, a little bit drier forecast in the 6 to 10 day outlook suggests a more rapid start to the planting season than was perceived yesterday.
Yeah, and I look at corn, today 7.99 and a quarter on that May contract, breaking through that $8 barrier, and one has to wonder if that's a psychological loss for the corn market today or not. Pretty much testing that mark here, but you mentioned that planting window possibly opening up, and that could be something that could maybe ease traders' minds just a little bit here, and farmers' minds for that matter.
Right. And goes back to what I said initially. Excuse me. It's just hard to get things to continually go up on a daily basis, especially when you hit such high levels. If you think about it, a little bit before the war, December corn was trading near 550 before the war, and here we're at 750. That's a whale of a rally. Um, they had some weather developments in the southern hemisphere on some of the first crop, but really it's the second crop looks, I'm going to say, pretty good right now. So you got a $2 rally. At some point, you got to have something newer and more. In the way the market's reacting today, it looks like they're just not seeing it. I might have argued earlier today, it looked like there was money flow basically out of row crops into commodities, and all of a sudden you have a scenario where the stock market trading over 35,000 and that's 3,000 points above the low right after the start of the war. But we'll see where that goes because now that's turned 250 points lower. So a lot of money movement, a lot of activity, but just not a lot of new news.
And I think with the stock market, heard some folks talking about some of the rumblings from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. I know he spoke today. One has to wonder if some of his comments maybe influenced that about face in the stock market here today.
Well, and the Fed is caught with this sort of scenario where all of a sudden you got sort of runaway inflation, and the way to beat that historically is to raise interest rates. And you raise interest rates, it raises the dollar. When you raise the dollar, in theory, you have less exports. All else being equal, the dollar had a pretty hard reversal down yesterday. A pretty weak looking morning, but rallied back. So I think the prospect of higher interest rates is likely, and consequently that may have sparked some of this turnaround here late in the day on the dollar and the Dow. The big picture though continues to remain snug on world supplies of corn, beans, wheat, uh, oil markets, oils as in energy markets, oils as in vegetable oils. Um, still looks, very supportive. But even at the most highest prices and, things look supportive and bullish news, you still need more bullish news. And looks like the market may have run out of steam here in the short term.
I was impressed today with how the soybean market reacted. We were a bit weaker there today, but beans were able to claw out a couple cent gains. Bean oil a little higher. To your point about vegetable oils, and canola, I know was trading higher today as well. So I mean, not a bad day all in all for the soy complex today, Brian.
Not at all. Again, tight world vegetable oil supplies, good exports and soybeans as of late. And when you take a look at what that really means or looks like, export sales this morning for soybeans, 17 million bushels old crop and 45.6 million new crops. So some pretty big numbers there. That old crop, though, right now at 2,098,000,000, and the market is looking for, or the USDA is looking for 2.115 billion. So we're only 17 million bushels away, with a lot of rumor that China might be buying more beans. So, you might have to see another increase to the projected exports and decrease the carry out in future months.
Looking at the export sales, I know as well on the quarter wheat side, real quick. Was it more normal for this time of year for corn? It was pretty dismal for wheat today too.
Wheat old crop was dismal. Now, keep in mind we're nearing the end of the marketing year, but 1 million bushels isn't going to cut it at these prices. I can see why the market was probably off today. Not a big number there, 8.8 million for new crop. Okay. What we're not seeing is these shortages out of Ukraine. We're not seeing the world rush to buy U.S. wheat to fill that void. Unlike corn, got some really big export numbers from China here over the last several weeks. So wheat's got its road that looks a little rockier if you want to be bullish, other than weather right now, and maybe that's good enough. Maybe Ukraine and weather is good enough, but it looks a little tired, a lot of back and forth. Yet the beans had a good day, up a couple cents. That's a pretty good victory. Finishing what low of 15. Let's just call it 15.20 in November. Finish it. Let's call it 15.32. Nice 12-cent pop off the low and in the positive territory.
Well, Brian, as farmers enter the heart of spring planting here, hopefully, presumably, if we dry out enough to get some tractors and planters rolling throughout parts of the Corn Belt, any advice, anything changed, anything we need to really consider with our marketing plan at this point in time? Because obviously, not only are farmers looking at, the new crop 22, some are even looking at new crop 23 with some of these elevated levels.
And you should. It's okay to be bullish, but you should be selling into rallies. Think about the magnitude of bypassing a 750 board price. And let's just say things tip over. Let's say demand just isn't quite as strong as it was forecasted. Let's say our crop is bigger and corn bought some acres back. Don't look back with all that significant regret. Now, I'm sure many have already sold on the way up, as you probably should be. I would say just add to it. If you need to be strategic, then get strategic. If you want to talk about that, give us a call. We can get strategic. But I think one of the things that you need to recognize is that as a farmer, you wear a couple of hats. One is a producer, the other is a manager of your product or your inventory. They call it inventory management. You've got some good prices staring you in the eyes. It's okay to be friendly, but still take some action.
Brian, let's flip over to the livestock sector. Weekly export sales, marketing year low for pork, and the hog market, was down pretty hard today, fairly hard anyway. Triple digit losses there. Would you tie most of those losses in the hog market to that dismal export number?
In part, China has plenty of pork, as in their own production. I would also tell you, I think the traders are very busy buying beef or buying live cattle, buying feeder cattle, selling hogs today. Um, the live market's starting to get that spark we talked about going to the grilling season. We think good product movement there. Expectations that the weights, although heavy, will be coming down in the months ahead. I think you got a lot of green light in the cattle market, and they hit their highest price in several weeks. Today, nice to see the recovery and finish at levels not seen since February.
Yeah, and some of that cash trader here early this week, couple dollars higher, especially in the north. Very nice to
Before
see. And like you said, kind of getting to that summer grilling season. And Also, still watching the Northern Plains. I know some ranchers assessing losses there. One has to wonder if some of the cattle losses after that blizzard would be enough to give us a pop in this cattle market as well if supplies will dwindle.
I think it does in the long run. I don't know about, losing calves in the short run. I'm talking about losing calves in the calving
Mhm.
season and then just weight loss or weight gain loss in some of those areas for several days or what I call neutral days, or you just don't get any weight gain. It's like a day goes by without any new supply that day because you lost it. Um, the big picture, I still think looks, friendly long term, limited supply, good world demand. We've got inflationary times. What does that mean? Well, I don't know. What it means is that things are going up in the store. Maybe consumers don't pay as much, or maybe consumers spend more on food and less on other stuff. Um, so we'll have to see where that plays out. But in theory, consumers have quite a bit more money on hand now than they did prior to the pandemic, and so things like grilling, going out, I think people are pent up. They want to do that. We've talked about this a long time. We're starting to see the move in the market this week, the firmer cutout values. I think there's good inquiry there. The other thing to keep in mind with the beef market too, and it should provide support for pork, but pork's been so high priced, is the avian bird flu and some of the reduction of supplies that plague that industry.
Definitely something to watch moving forward. How about the dairy market, Brian? What are we seeing there as we look to wrap up the week?
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of volatility is what you're seeing. um, when you look at the market today, really nice gains, 21 to 41 points. Well, that comes after a day where we were down limit 2 sessions ago, and that's a pretty hard follow through yesterday. So what are we seeing? A lot of volatility. Prices are at or near record highs. They're likely to hold up long in a longer period of time than do most times when they reach these levels. The dairy industry has a tendency to sort of kind of a spike or a V high where you kind of go up and then kind of come down pretty quick. Sometimes you extend that out a little bit. Um, you've got such high input costs and then labor issues. We're not we're not really expecting that this or the dairy herd is going to grow all that fast, and with inflationary concerns and people's kind of need to get out and eat out cheese and whatnot. Maybe some setback coming, but it's likely limited.
Well, Brian, a lot of great stuff, as I mentioned. And as we are looking to wrap up the week, any final thoughts you have for us on this Thursday?
I'd go back just to what I said in the corn market there. We've been kind of toying at this upper 740, 50 area here for several sessions. Kind of broke off it today. I would say, if in doubt, just go ahead and get things done. Um, the world is filled with orders that are a penny or two away from getting done. Um, so just kind of keep that in mind that, when you get up to these price levels, if you're thinking of selling, my bias is to sell. Don't try and, say, well, I want to see if I can't get 750 and find out, the market just never gets back to 750. Before you know it, it's at 650. If you're wrong selling too aggressively now, rather than waiting maybe at 10 cents or 5 cents a day, really doesn't matter the big picture. Prices go a bunch higher. You'll look back and go, well, I wish I wouldn't have sold either. But it might be the difference between being in and not being in. And with some of the signals we've gotten that we've mentioned before, uh, feel pretty strong about encouraging people to act.
Well, Brian, before we run out of time, if folks need a little advice on how to act with these markets, I know they can reach out to you and the team there at Total Farm Marketing very easily, either going to the website, totalfarmmarketing.com, or a good old fashioned phone call, can't they?
They sure can. And we really encourage the phone calls just because we like to talk to people and hear what they're really asking. I've said this before. I've said, when you write something out, it's great. But I can't tell the language of it unless you put all capital letters or something. So, so I don't know the body language. I don't know really what's behind it. I don't have a chance to come back and say, well, why are you thinking that way? Or have you thought about this? So the phone call is really important.
And you can get that phone call very easily. What's that number, Brian?
Best just to call 800-334-9779. And if you want to talk to me directly, just ask for Brian Doherty. We've got two Brians. Ask for Brian D or Brian Doherty.
Well, we appreciate the time as always, sir. Thanks for joining us here on this Thursday, and we will wish you a great rest of your week and a great weekend, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. Best of wishes to you and your audience. Just be safe this spring.
Bryan Doherty with Total Farm Marketing joining us here today on Market Talk. That's going to do it for the show on this Thursday, April 21st. Find us online, markettalkag.com. I'm Jesse Allen. Have a great afternoon.